2003. Mike Tyson, heavyweight champion, one of the most feared boxers in history, files for bankruptcy. He earned over $300 million during his career, and yet he sat $30 million in debt. How? This isn't a story about a boxer who wasted his fortune. It is a story about a universal truth. Earning more doesn't matter if you haven't to learn how to keep it. Right now, Americans hold the highest credit card debt ever recorded. Translation: we didn't learn anything. Debt is an invisible burden, and it's crushing the people who can afford it least. But this isn't just about the US or the UK. It's about you. Think about your own relationship with money. Does it enter your life and immediately leave? Have you ever felt so financially vulnerable that a get-rich-quick scheme actually sounded reasonable? That vulnerability isn't an accident. It is the result of a disconnect, a gap between how we think about money and how money actually works. And it's time we solve that mystery. Let's start with a question that seems too simple. What is money? Most definitions say, a medium of exchange. You trade it for stuff. Fine. But that doesn't tell us what money represents. Here's a better way to look at it. Money is an expression of value. You hand over $20 because you believe the item in your hand is worth $20 to you. The market collectively agrees on most prices, but the principle stands. Money flows toward value. Now, why does this matter? Because we constantly give money moral weight. You've heard it. Money is the root of all evil. We look at wealthy people and assume they got lucky, or cheated someone, or stepped on others to get ahead. But rarely do we ask, what value did they create? Scammers exist, sure, but that says everything about their morals and nothing about money itself. Money doesn't make you evil. It amplifies who you already are. It opens options and broadens horizons. What you do with it is on you. So money equals value. Good. Now what? Money enters your life because you produce something of value. For most of us, that's labor, a job. Money leaves your life when you consume something. Rent, groceries, Netflix, a car. Your net worth is quite literally the scoreboard of this game. Production minus consumption, accumulated over time. Now cast your mind back to those debt statistics. Which side of the equation is broken? Consider yourself. Of all the money that has ever entered your life, how much do you still have? How much is invested in assets that grow? For most of us, the real issue isn't production, it's consumption. A Career Builder study found that 78% of American workers live paycheck to paycheck. Not surprising, maybe. But here's the kicker. 1 in 10 workers earning over $100,000 a year also live paycheck to paycheck. Think about that. A 6-figure salary, well above the average cost of living, and somehow it is all gone by the end of the month. You can argue they'd like to earn more, but at some point, you have to admit, the problem isn't the income. It's the relationship with spending. Tyson earned $300 million, and he went bankrupt. Production means nothing when consumption is out of control. You've heard the phrase rat race. Often it's used to guilt you about having a 9-to-5. That's not what it means. A real rat race is living on a financial edge, one paycheck away from disaster. It's the feeling that money evaporates the moment it hits your account. It's the constant, low-grade anxiety that an unexpected car repair or medical bill could derail everything. When you live on that edge, your job stops being a choice. It becomes a necessity, not to fund your dreams, but to keep funding your lifestyle and paying off past consumption. As Tyler Durden said, the things you own end up owning you. So why don't we fix it? Because looking at the problem is painful. In behavioral finance, there's a concept called the ostrich effect, our tendency to avoid negative financial information. It's that feeling when you refuse to check your bank account after a weekend out. You know it's bad, so you just don't look. But avoidance doesn't make the problem disappear. It makes it grow. There are other biases too. Hyperbolic discounting, choosing a small reward now over a larger reward later. New shoes today instead of compounded growth in 20 years. Social proof. Thinking and spending like the people around us. When your friends buy something, you feel the urge to buy it too. This is the real keeping up with the Joneses. Except today, the Joneses aren't just your neighbors. They're everyone you follow on Instagram. The silver lining? You can step out of the race, but you can't change what you don't measure. The first step in personal finance, boring, unsexy, but proven, is to journal your expenses. For 1 month, Write down everything you spent. Categorize it: housing, transport, food, utilities, entertainment. You're not judging. You're just gathering data. This is hard. It forces you to confront the ostrich. But once you see the pattern, you can change it. Then you move to budgeting. Decide, intentionally, how much you want to spend in each category. Not what you think you should spend, what actually aligns with your values. And most importantly, live below your means. That doesn't mean deprivation. It means your lifestyle leaves room for saving and investing. Before you even think about investing, Personal Finance 101 says, build an emergency fund. 3 to 6 months of essential expenses, sitting in a savings account. Not invested. Not at risk. This is your shock absorber. It turns a crisis into an inconvenience. It lets you sleep at night. And it is the foundation that every other wealth-building strategy rests on. Let's be clear. I'm not saying you should never buy nice things. A sports car, a designer bag, a beautiful home. If you genuinely value them and can afford them, fine. But ask yourself honestly, do you care more about appearing wealthy or actually being wealthy? Because those are two very different goals. The rat race isn't a 9-to-5 job. It's chasing the next dopamine hit, the next purchase, the next validation, while your larger life goals stay on hold. A budget won't make you feel cool, but it will set you free. So let's recap what we've covered. Money is value, not evil, not moral, just a tool. Your financial position is production minus consumption. Most of us struggle with consumption, not income. The rat race is living on the edge, one paycheck from disaster. Biases like the ostrich effect and social proof keep us stuck. The fix: awareness, budgeting, living below your means, and an emergency fund. This is the foundation. But it's only half the equation. Because once you've stopped the leak, how do you fill the bucket faster? That's what part 2 is about. If this video made you think differently about your spending habits, hit like. It helps more people find it. And subscribe, because part 2 is coming right now, and you won't want to miss it. In part 2, we are tearing down the myth that frugality is the only path. We'll talk about production at scale, why YouTubers like Graham Stephan make millions, and how you can increase your value in the market, whether you start a business or not. Click the video on the screen to continue. See you in part 2.